Hello, everyone, and welcome to our joint webinar on digital product passport solutions and regulations focusing on textile, recycling, and battery sectors. My name is Emre. I'm Technical and Assurance Director at USB Certification, and I will be your moderator today. Alongside me, we have Suna, CEO of Beyond Barcodes, who will take us through the regulatory landscape and practical solutions around DPPs in detail. Before we dive into our main topic, let me take a few minutes to introduce USB certification for those who may not be familiar with us. USB certification was established in 1998 in Istanbul, and over nearly 3 decades, we have grown into a multinational conformity assessment body operating across more than 80 countries. Our headquarters is in Turkey, and we have offices in Italy, United Kingdom, Bangladesh, China, Pakistan, India, Morocco, and Cyprus, with representatives and fields of activity spanning across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East and beyond. We employ over 300 professionals and process more than 120,000 transaction certificates annually, making us one of most active certification bodies in our field. Our services cover a broad spectrum in textile and recycling certification. We are approved for programs including GOTS, Better Cotton, Textile Exchange, and our own regenerative initiative for regenerative agriculture. In testing and analysis, our Istanbul laboratory operates under TÜRKAK accreditation within the scope of ISO 17025. On the industrial side, we hold notified body status under the European Union's new approach framework, performing CE marking for personal protective equipment. We are also active in food and agriculture certification with BRCGS and IFS approvals, as well as management system certification, second party and supplier audits, and brand audits. In 2022, we proudly launched our Regenerate program, our Regenerative Agriculture and Supply Chain Certification Initiative. And most recently, in 2025, we became a headline sponsor of Better Cotton's Izmir conference and were recognized as BRCGS Certification Body of the Year. Now, why are we here today? Because the regulatory environment in Europe is changing rapidly. The Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, the ESPR, is making the digital product passport mandatory for a growing range of products. Batteries are first in line with compliance and required as early as February 2027. Textiles, as a priority product group, are not far behind. As a certification body that sits at the heart of global textile supply chains, from raw material verification to finished product certification, we see digital product passport not just as a regulatory requirement, but as a natural extension of what we already do, ensuring traceability, transparency, and trust across value chains. This is precisely why we partnered with Beyond Barcodes and Artec International, a Brussels-based technology company, at the forefront of DPP as a service solutions. Together, we aim to help manufacturers, suppliers, and brands navigate this transition smoothly. With that, I would like to hand over to Suna, who will walk us through what digital product passports actually are, the regulatory framework behind them, including the ESPR, GSDD, Green Claims Directive, and Waste Framework Directive, the implementation timeline, and what this all means practically for businesses, especially those in the Indo-Pacific region exporting to Europe. Suna, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Emre, and good morning, everyone. My name is Suna. I'm the founder and the CEO of Beyond Barcodes and Artec. We are Brussels-based R&D SMEs, as Emre briefly underlined that. Today, I'd like to give you a brief overview. What's the digital product passport and what are the regulation who is shaping this digital product passport regulation and mandatory DPPs particularly. Just briefly that we are a member of several technology platforms who are familiar with that in the area for data, robotics, data spaces, and also semiconductors and automotive, which are also the main, let's say, the target group of Digital Product Passport. We are also quite known in the EU-funded projects, which are also shaping for the Digital Product Passport technology landscape. As Emre mentioned briefly, that we are trying to provide DPP as a service for manufacturers and other OEMs and also the public bodies. In this area that we already managing more than 2 million of R&D fundings, and for the moment we are having more than 100 POC customers, and we are not only focusing on European DPP but also the global ones, and also we are now executing state level DPP projects where we are helping the public bodies as well. By the way, I will be starting my presentation, but Emre, would you like to give a overall question and answers and how we are going to, maybe we forget that part.
Yes, I also wrote on the chat box. You can ask your question on the chat box, and also during the webinar, Suna will reply to your queries and also questions.
Exactly. I will try to use 30 minutes of roundup the Digital Product Passport to be able to let the participants, because the participants quite a diverse groups, so that we will try to respond their questions. When something is not clear, please also mention in the chat. Right now, when I'm presenting, I don't see the chat boxes, as you all know, but I will later on try to explain the whole questions. Unfortunately, we don't have that much interactive with this webinar settings, but we will be responding your questions accordingly. So starting from the definition of the Digital Product Passport, as Digital Product Passport, I really like to give this idiom that as a person we are, as Suna, as Emre, is we need to travel from one country to the other one. If you wanted to have an international journey, we need to have our own passports. Depending on the country, you need a visa, you need other paperworks. Please apply the same mindset to the products, that the products will soon, and also already going on operation, have their own passports. Means that the identification, that what this product is coming where, or the origin of the materials and the components, what kind of a component it has, and what are the let's say the components are being made, produced and stuff and so on. Like as the person, your, let's say, personal identification number and your name and surname and stuff, the product will have a similar set of indicators, similar set of mandatory data when they are being the subjected of international export and import. So this is the main reason. When you understand this, the necessity of why the digital product has been regulated by the Commission, you will understand that. So the main, let's say, the baseline regulation for the Digital Product Passport, making textile and the battery, as Emre said, that mandatory, is coming from ESPR. ESPR is a very European, let's say, abbreviation, who is referring Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, which is going to be also leading to other regulation, that how this product environment is going to be, let's say, regulated. Just the one thing that you need to, again, to keep in mind, that the DPP means that the digital IDs of the all products. So it is not, again, maybe to underline here, it is not an LCA tool. It is not an ERP tool. It's not an ERP module. It's not something that the brand can themselves provide or register of the system. It is like the international travel system. Imagine that this is an operational, the baseline of the product, let's say, exchange or product journey. So in that regard, different regulations, different regulative landscapes can involve inside. Since we are talking about mainly European and EU, let's say ESPR mandating DPP, but please consider that there is also similar systems are happening in different regions of the world, such as China, such as Australia, such as Singapore, such as Korea and stuff and so on. These are also being under, let's say, governance by the UN bodies and relevant open source frameworks and so on. So The main idea of the digital product passport thing, of course, to decrease the using the virgin materials, promoting the circular economy principles and stuff. So to be able to claim, to be able to prove that claims, you need a, let's say, infrastructure, electronic infrastructure to prove these claims, and you need the organization to adapt to align with this system as well. With this landscape, there is this is an architecture, overall technical architecture. What is the DPP about? It's as we said, that it is not a automation pipeline from your mining provider, mining supplier till the end of the customer. It is not. Is the current landscape, the current system is being, let's say, restructured under the electronic and data-based infrastructure, where you are also partnering, where you are also having collaboration with the public, your customs, your ministry, your market surveillance authorities, your OEMs and stuff and so on. Please consider that, because soon, very soon, that there is going to be a lot with the DPP washing. There's going to be a lot with this. During this transition point, the entities, the governments, the public bodies who are misreading or misunderstanding the scope of the DPP can end up a huge investment cost that is not foreseen, or that is not being planned. This is really important. And again, I would like to underline here that this system is being managed. It's let's say a central system by the EC, that all this operation will be handled. I'm just talking about here the European side again, starting from the February with the batteries and also the textiles. So all these OEMs, if we are having today the textile and the battery OEMs, need to consider that kind of a structure, not to end up with a solution that is not allowing them to operate with this environment. I will need to explain, maybe if based on your question, I can come back to this slide and I can give you a further explanation what is this systems about. One thing that is also being quite, let's say, heavily asked for us, that what is the data carriers? Like your passport chip, I think it's a very nice benchmark. You have a passport chip to prove your personal biometric data and stuff. The similar for the products, the physical products that will need to have it can be a QR code, it can be an NFC tag, it can be RFID tag, it can be a GS1 link. It's not just one thing based on the standard GTC 24, where the Commission is going to define this data carrier. You will, the product will need to have this kind of a data to be this, let's say, embedded with this data carriers. Please consider that this is not just only QR code, but there can be a different data carriers options based on the products. If you are doing a chemical related one, if you are doing a more durable one, depending on that. But the QR is mainly, let's say, have a sort of one of the consensus data carrier point. That's why I have a separate slide, because this is a question that this is also creating let's say, constitutional terms or article, but not. We will see based on also the product related regulation that this can be a change, or this can give another flexibility. For those particularly who is not non-European partners, I saw in the participant list that we do have a lot with the Indo-Pacific, let's say, participants, that they are already getting aware, they are already getting familiar with the ESPR, but ESPR is, let's say, starting point of all this sustainability, all this product related circularity aspects, which is now mandating the digital product passport for textile and the battery, which are the most polluting the sectors for the moment from the European side. The ESPR did not come into one day. There has been a huge, let's say, work for those who's living in the Europe, that they were already aware of that ESPR is going to be mandating the textile and the battery as the DPP sort of technologies. Started already 2019 with the Green Deal, and then ESPR also came into force in 2024. But let's say, if you are familiar with the European regulatory, let's say, ecosystem, that the one regulation has been launched, there's always 18 months of a period for the implementation to let the industry and the ecosystem to prepare and adapt their own let's say, environments. The second thing is that related to this, the delegated act, which is also explaining the category by category, that how this is going to be, let's say, implemented. We will be seeing a lot of delegated acts also starting from this year, Q2, Q3, that how the DPPs are going to be handled. But what has been important, I mean, what's important, particularly for non-European partners, is that there is a different regulation landscape who are shaping for different parts of it, different parts of the implementation. So you just need to consider those, let's say, elements. Maybe you are also a big supplier of one big OEM, such as the textile one. You are already familiar with the I really don't like this abbreviation, but CCDD means that corporate sustainable due diligence reporting, corporate sustainable reporting and stuff. Or you are also, let's say, already started to give this kind of thing, or you heard CBAM and stuff and so on. The overall ideal roadmap of the digital product passport and digital product passport system is to simplify those diverse and different regulations that the entities, particularly SMEs, are struggling to report, struggling to provide. So we are waiting this year. This is already digital omnibus has been, let's say, shared, but we are waiting also a huge simplification, let's say, acts for how those things are going to be handled. But what is important in the CST, the Corporate Sustainable Directive, and how it's linked with DPP is that you are already giving this kind of self-assessment, or depending on the system, that what is the due diligence policies? I mean, who is working for your product? Who are providing it? Are you giving any the harm to the indigenous people and stuff and so on? These needs to be also a claim-based credentials that needs to be also where maybe I need to underline here that the current notified bodies, current let's say entities will need to transform those claims auditability and stuff. Please consider this transformation not just happening only between the OEM and the customs, or between the supplier and OEM, but also it's transforming the whole ecosystem, transforming the current the entities that you need to consider. Green claim is something that the textile, let's say, domain is aware of it, and then this is also being how this going to include by the DPPs, let's say, upcoming the system. For the moment, we know that there are some, let's say, must-have data, must-have, let's say, the credentials to be provided by 2027, but it is going to be get more extended by 2030, 2034, depending on the industry that you are working. So that's the reason that this DPP system is going to be referring to different components of the product, components of the process. Yet another thing is that the waste frame directive, that you, particularly textile and the battery people, are quite unaware of it, that how those the waste, let's say, of the product, end of the product or end of life process are going to be handled. These are also supported by different regulations and different mandates. But these are also, as we said, that to be simplified, to be simply monitored by the digital product passport system, hopefully starting from 2030, not the 20 again. And that how this landscape is going to be melted. This is something that it's a bit more advanced, and let's say, information, but who are also from the sustainability department of the companies needs to know that new legislation framework, which is now referring, apart from these two categories, 25 new categories of the product, particularly physical product, will have their own DPP, and we will be waiting from domain-related, product-related DPP regulations upcoming, let's say, years. This is, for example, for the steel and iron industry. There is also a process-related industry, furniture. Electronics, particularly consumer electronics, needs to have their own respective DPPs. This is the main, let's say, the landscape which is to be form, which is to be melted under the EU Product Act, which we are expecting to be released in the Q3 of this year. This is going to mainly refer DPP-related system, DPP-related mandate data. So this is also one thing that you might heard from us first time. I'm using the Commission own slides. I am using this Commission's, let's say, latest DPP implementation roadmap that the technical standardization will be released by the Q1, hopefully end of March or beginning of April. We will be having the digital product passport technical standards, and then also we will be having the implementing act of the DPP, which we are expecting by June. And then the let's say pilot phase of the DPP for the battery and textile will start with between the Q3 and Q4, where the OEM will register their product on the EC central system. I am really sorry if I'm using too much abbreviations, but this is also a bit, let's say, the necessity of this, the regulation that we need to use this original, let's say, abbreviations and original terms. So the EC central system is the one thing that the OEM will be registering through the web portal of the digital, through the web portal of ECs. Again, we are waiting those, let's say, certain guidance from the Commission side where there's not going to be any fragmented technical implementation. So there needs to be the harmonized standards, particularly on the Sentinel Excise GTC 24. For those who wants to have a look at further one, they can go for the details of it. As we know by today that the 5 of the 8 of this let's say, technical standards has been released, has been consensus, but the 3 of them will be later on shared with us. I'm just, let's say,
Sorry, Suna, I need to jump in here to extend the discussion. There is a confusion about the DPP is already ready and also implemented all the technical parts. Could you explain more? DPP is not ready for the European Union because of the technical regulations and also standards. Could you explain more?
Yes, sure. I would like to. As again, from this slide, I would like to give that Commission needs to first, I mean, European Commission and their standardization body needs to first to release their technical standard, which is not the case for the moment. There are some let's say, modules have been released, but we don't have the final results of the technical standards. So what Emre, you are asking is something that I need to be careful here, because we are one of the also DPP provider. We are also helping, we are also supporting this transition period. So if you think that, I mean, if one entity sells their product as the end product or the final DPP, it's not the case, because Commission did not, let's say, have a consensus. The Commission did not decide yet what is going to be this, the system, because currently we are not part of it, but the pilot, let's say, demos or pilot things are happening within the Commission that now they need to provide us the technical guidance. Okay, these are going to be your data standards. I'm just giving you one example. Please don't take it as it is, but it needs to be JSON LD format. It needs to be data carrier will be QR code, blah, blah stuff and so on. So these needs to be fixed, and then there needs to be and an implementation and the technical guidance that how, for example, the Vietnam Custom Ministry or Vietnam Custom will register their OEM through the which portal. These needs to be also clarified. This is not clear yet, although things has been, let's say, overall or generic level declared, but the technical implementation is not still clear, even for the member states customs. And that's why we are waiting for this implementing DPP Act by Q2. And then the phase by Q3 and Q4 of this year, we will be able to see, and the Commission will be able to test that their web portal and the registry portal are working. I hope I could explain this way. And one thing is that also for those who wants to be a DPP provider, they also need to consider that what they are building needs to serve in the way that interoperable between the DPPs. You cannot create any data, you cannot create any system which can be a vendor lock, because something that has been completely forbidden, that you are just like a pipeline who is helping to carry from one data to the other entity. So being DPP operator also should be maybe reconsidered in terms of the, let's say, revenue generation stuff and so on, but this is what it is. So please understand it in this, let's say, how this system, how those, let's say, product compliance system has been designed and work for it. Thank you for your question, and I hope I could make it clear for.
Thank you, Suna, and also similar questions in the chat box.
Okay.
So many questions we have. You may continue. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Just one thing, that this is also official document, but we make it a bit more clear for you on the right side for the providing a similar, let's say, what those means. This is a textile related documents that the Commission also shared with us, that what's the phase 1, 2027 is meaning for the textile OEMs, that what does that they need to provide as the mandatory, from whom. By the way, again, I am giving another concrete and very practical example. Your supplier will not enter anything into the DPP system. It's the OEM for the moment. It's by 2027, OEM is the responsible. Economic operator, meaning OEM, is responsible. If you are a car maker, you are the one. If you're a battery manufacturer, you are the one. OEM as responsible to create your own data, your DPP, to register your DPP in related to product on the system. Later on, we will be linking the supply chain actors, but not directly, via the notification, notified bodies, via the accredited. It's called, by the way, independent operators, where the, let's say, market authorities, where the ministries, where the public and also the sector will decide who is going to have these claims, who is going to verify those claims, and the credentials and so on. Anyway, I would like to again give that the 2027 is just starting for the core compliance, and core traceability is going on. But as you will see that in 2030, it's gonna rapidly go for the end life, and it means that the consumer related DPPs and consumer related involvement will be part of this. I'm giving this example quite a nice things, and it will be not directly DPP, but DPP based on third-party services will allow you to sell your, I really don't want to give the brand name, but let's say that you have a very luxurious and very well-known brand of some clothes that you want to sell. Emre can sell these clothes via the system validation without going for another third party, and you will be knowing the second-hand market prices stuff, and you will be having your own, let's say, maintenance or your recycled stuff and so on over this system. But this is not 2027. Please don't take into account any consumer-related application. And DPP is not an application. DPP is a system which creates a lot of application-based, let's say, data as a service systems on top of it. But please make sure that what is the DPP and what is the DPP-enabled services, DPP-enabled applications. In 2033, on the textile side, which is different for the battery. Battery has a, let's say, huge and ambitious goals for the 2031, for example, in terms of the recycling one. As you might see that the whole, let's say, the building blocks of the supply chain of the textile will need to provide mandatory data, and will need to be part of this system to be able to continue their operations, continue their manufacturing and supply chain operations. I hope it's clear what I have, let's say, try to explain. One thing that I really specifically underline, that for the moment you are also aware that Commission and the European Union side is having a trade agreement with the free trade agreement with different countries, such as in India, such as Singapore, such as Japan, such as let's say the Korea and stuff. So there is a reason behind that, because as you know that the European region does not have the critical raw materials, and manufacturing and material related things are happening outside of the Europe. So via doing this regulation that Europe wants to also shape the economical agenda and the economic, let's say, paradigm via how you are manufacturing and how you are applying your circular economy principles, and also who is working for your, let's say, entities are needs to be transferred in this system. And then this is the main reason that we also need to consider that this is not just an EU things, but there is going to be a cascading effects on those countries. For example, I know that we are working with the Indian governments, that India is now working on their GDPR equivalent, let's say, or ESPR related equivalent regulations to synchronize with the EU one, so that the DPP operation or the export operation can go with the seamlessly. So in that regard, those regions, particularly Indo-Pacific, including Canada, including South America, as you might know also for the food, that there is a huge agriculture agreement has been done between the EU and South American countries. They also need to prepare themselves to be, we don't call it DPP, but the similar systems like DPP. So that's why they need to start from their, let's say, regulatory landscape to update or to synchronize with the EU ones, and also prepare their supply chain actors, the whole supply chain actors, for these upcoming changes. And then also they need to prepare themselves for the upcoming new business model. As I said, that there's going to be a huge DPP enabled service. Please consider that DPP is like an embedded layer of a trade exchange, an embedded layer. I'm sorry, I cannot find the non-technical word, but with DPP is going to create who has what and in which condition, and what those claims are, going to be verified by whom. So it gives you a kind of an assurance, gives you the guarantees that what you are buying or what you are selling or what you are operating or what you are having an agreement. So in that regard, I also wanted to have a specific example for those regions, because I know that half of the participants are coming from these areas. So if we have any particularly public participants, that they need to consider with that way. If you don't have any other question, I'm coming to the end to be able to have more questions, but future product passports will be having a lot, let's say, potential. Future product passports, I'm not just giving the example of the European one, I mean EU or ESPR related one, but I'm talking about the global one, because for the moment, as we discussed, that there is similar initiatives are going in China, going in India, going even in the US, by the way, but they don't call it DPP, but they are going to be, let's say, a part of this, the global trade, let's say, product compliance environment, let's call it this way. And then they will be creating a huge new business models, as we said, that there's going to be a huge, for example, stock exchange market, who is going to have a recycled X material, who is going to have I don't know, upcycled blah blah, so that you will be able to operate via this, let's say, this potential. And then data monetization is not particularly, I'm telling this textile people and the battery people, your revenue will be not coming from the product that you are going to be producing or you are going to be recycling and so on, but there's going to be a huge new revenue based on the data as a service systems and data as a service, let's say, transactions, where I'm also happy that we are already starting with the USB team. Maybe Emre, we can just give a smaller example that how we are also driving this kind of a collaboration for this upcoming the period. So please mind that what you're investing is not just today's things, but also the tomorrow's, let's say, economical, the landscape. From our side, just the one thing, that how we did this thing with this particular and this different diverse domains, we are happy that we are leading and providing, coordinating many EU funded and the global projects with the leading industries. Some of them are project partners, some of them are clients that we are happy to provide them a sort of different, let's say, product compliance services. So these are my and Emre's, let's say, contact details. I would be happy to give, let's say, an objective. I hope that I give you an objective, let's say, overview for this DPP topic. I think that we are, for the moment, done with this presentation, Emre. Now I can go back to the chats if you have sort of questions.
Thank you, Suna. And we have more questions about the DPP. You already replied some part of the questions, but I'm seeing that from the chat box, there's a confusion still about the product level and also about the sanctions, about which kind of sanctions will face, especially for the Asian companies, because of is their system not ready for the DPP? I'm seeing that. I will read all the questions about the chat box, but first of all, I would like to mention about collaboration with the Artek and also Beyond Barcode, especially to prepare the companies, including the ESG regulations, and also prepare to Asian countries, including Vietnam, Bangladesh, Cambodia, India, Pakistan. The companies will be prepared with our collaboration ESG criteria and also DPP platform. We are preparing as a service in this webinar. Now, I'm reading, especially the first question about the ESPR regulation would be applicable on leather-based PPEs, personal protective equipments like gloves, shoes, and motorcycles.
I think these are going to be not first, let's say, layer to be implemented, but upcoming one, as we just mentioned, that new legislation framework. Maybe I will put in the chat what I'm meaning, what this new legislation framework, but already referring 25 different groups. I don't want to kill people's enthusiasm here, but now we are discussing the physical products, but Commission is also considering other ICT products, meaning that the software-related products will be also subjected to a similar system related to DPP. So let's say, I mean, all the physical products will need to, in the end, have an identification means so that you will know, Emre, that where do you buy from, who is doing that, and what is the cost of it. But by the way, we forget to underline, but I'm sure the participants are aware of it, that DPP is also something that you are able to give, let's say, legitimate tax. And this is needed for the tax, you know, the custom tax, the material tax, and also the cost of the product. Because some certain sectors participants will know that, for example, in the automotive, you need to have a 35% of the recycled component of, for example, let's say plastics or something. But this is going to be applied for the different domains and different, let's say, subcomponents. If you are just providing, for example, let's say virgin material for certain things, you will need to adapt your businesses as well. And your cost will be higher than the other ones. So we also need to know that DPP is also giving us the legitimate, let's say, baseline, how to calculate the product, how to calculate the custom, let's say, the costs of it.
Thank you. The second one, I'm reading all the questions and some part of the questions similar. In a B2B textile context, how can companies ensure that downstream supply chain actors such as printers, printing companies, who buy blank apparel and sell decorated products to end consumers or refurbishment providers are able to add verified and traceable data to the DPP as well?
Okay, here's the things that I also wanted to explain it, that your suppliers will not be part of, at the first stage, at the very next 3-4 years, your suppliers will not be putting any direct data, any, claim into the end product DPP. It's the OEM responsibility. It's the printer making company who will need to provide. And yet that level, we are not giving that granular level of data. But of course, the roadmap is going to that granular level, but it is not this, let's say, this year or this term's mandatory thing. This is going to be a second and the third phases of the DPP. as we are now giving the reference of the GTC 24 level standardization, we will be having this semantic, let's say, interoperability. I'm sorry, I am trying my best not to use the technical vocabulary, but downstream data standardization will come later on based on the product, based on the services, based on the process, industry stuff, and so on. I hope it's clear that
Yes.
because it's creating a huge ambiguous, let's say, period for textile people. Okay, textile people don't get freaked out because this is going to come for the phase 2 and phase 3. But of course, you need to prepare your supply chain network to digitalize their infrastructure so that they can give you this kind of let's say DPP ready data.
Yes, it's clear because I need to clarify most of the participants and also attendees in the webinar from the textile sector and align with the some claim-based materials, organic recycle, paper, metal, etc. That's why they are asking these questions, I guess. The third one, wasn't the Green Claims Directive put on hold indefinitely?
Can you just repeat again? Because I saw a nice question that I want to give also on the textile side. Can you repeat again, Emre?
Wasn't the Green Claims Directive put on hold indefinitely?
That's a bit reborning under this, EU Product Act. It's going to be coming with this now delegated access. That's why I said that I from the presentation we will be sharing, I guess, the whole participant that I think the baseline is also going to serve because what waste framework is trying to do, what the green claims or what the CBAM are all serving for this claim-based credentials. Okay, I am spending blah blah energy, I am spending blah blah water consumption, blah. But what is the evidence base? Is there any laboratory? Is there any notified body who did this test and also approved it? Because this is going to be happening in the, let's say, the future, let's say, operation. So please don't that much think about which claims and which blah blah stuff, but DPP is already taking over the, let's say, period, so that you need to be adapting many regulation. Maybe you don't hear about today, but there's going to be a specific, very niche regulation will be affecting you. By the way, I'm telling that some sort of novel DPPs are providing, including us, this kind of a solution that how you are going to be adapted this dynamic regulation changes and up, let's say, continuous audit, let's say, systems.
We have so many questions. Continue.
Yes. I'm happy that at least that we are giving a very, let's say, honest and very, let's say, objective.
We discussed with you before the webinar. If we get more questions, I will ask, but no need to ask today. When would sanction start for who is not going to adopt it?
Sanction is not the word I would say, because that doesn't need if you don't provide let's say relevant systems. If we are talking about the sanctions could be later on things, it cannot be sanctions, but you can have your product be returned by the EU customs. You can pay this return customs. I don't know, the custom people can talk about it. Or if you don't set up your own national operational and regulation landscape, then it's going to be more costly for you, or your certain type of business, your certain type of sector can distinguish. If you don't prepare your battery ecosystem, I'm just giving you, on China, for example. China is quite ready, that they already have their own data spaces, they have their own DPP systems, which is also equivalent with the European ones. So if they don't do it, then we will need to go for alternatives. Commission will go and alternatives. And yet another question before people asking, is there any potential to delay? We are not expecting any delay. On top of that, on the contrary, there is going to be a huge, let's say, a push to implement those things, starting even from the basic one. Maybe it will not start with the full-fledged or full planned one, but this is going to start with the basic one, where this authorities needs to prepare their transition period for this upcoming the system. And Commission will not step back. You may understand that they are already going for extended custom unions. You know, they are extending their custom, let's say, relations with many global regions of the world. So you can also understand from that one.
Yes, including India and also
Marcus
South America.
I mean,
Mexico.
for those who is living in Europe, we are having every day a protest for the farmers. There's a reason behind that, because for the moment, Europe will be able to get a agriculture food product from South Asia. And of course, you can understand, you can also expect that a similar DPP will be regulated for the agri-food as well, because they will also need to know, they will also need to origin, you know, or the seed, blah, blah stuff and so on.
I will reply totally. We will share with you the presentation and also recording of this webinar in our social media accounts. And also some Turkish attendees asking for Turkish webinar for the DPP and also presentation. So many questions and also queries about the presentation. I replied totally. And I'm skipping the other question. How we are going to get benefit from digital passport?
The question is depending on who is asking. As I said, that as an OEM, you will need to have, again, to redesign your supplier network. You will need to redesign, maybe it sounds a bit frustrating, but your, let's say, resourcing planning. Depending on this one, if you are resourcing from Indonesia, I'm just giving, sorry, it's not just if the Indonesian system, if the Indonesian government is not investing that part, you need to consider again, because in the end, you'll need to be able to prove this claim, and you need to be able to have this kind of a raw material, let's say, operation. So for the OEMs, that has been creating a very long investment and long strategic planning side. Second thing is on the SMEs. If the SMEs, since the SMEs, we are SME, we have more agility, we are more adaptive. So if you understand that this DPP is also creating a novel business model, novel revenue generation stuff, apart from what you are doing for the moment, what you are performing, that's creating yet another big economic opportunity. By the way, this is also one of the main goal of this ESPR and one of the main goal of the DPP implementation, so that you will be able to, a new SME who is recycling, who is upcycling, or there are going to be a new, for example, shops who is selling X brand second-hand shop, but based on the validation, based on the verification systems and so on. Or you will be have a e-commerce actor doing this kind of I don't know, the stock exchanges on the material or the process one, because this has a potential to transform your own business, but also bringing a huge opportunities. Of course, there are the threats. The threat part is that if you're not prepared for this, that you have the potential to lose your current market, to use your, let's say, lose your current clients and so on. Also the market areas in the world. But this is both ways. That's why, by the way, it's another thing that I'm giving this example, since I'm living in Brussels, but Europe is trying to spill over the effect that they are delegating, they are regulating with the other countries, so that they won't be standalone. It's not going to be just happening within the Europe or the member state, but it's also affecting the other, let's say, countries and their own economic principles.
Yes. Another question that I will translate the question. DPP for SMEs, is it also applies the same way as to big companies? I understand from the question, the big companies, including the brands.
Current ESPR is making responsible economic operator. When it comes to the textile landscape, it's the brand itself needs to register, needs to provide the digital product passport. But it cannot be, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to give a huge fast fashion brand names. I will not make them unhappy. I am Gucci. I cannot create Gucci DPP. As Gucci, I need to register my product into registry system, and the DPP operators will be accredited by the Commission. This is the current plan, that they are planning to first 100 independent, it's not an independent, economic operator, DPP service provider, and then they will be operating this one. And Gucci can go later on to ask for the supply chain actors, for example, if they are providing a certain accessories, which was in the question, that they can provide in a different way, so that the companies like USP can validate, okay, this button is 100 recycled, and these are based on our test results and stuff. But this is going to be a later stage. The first stage is that the Gucci needs to register on the system via the accredited DPP operator. I hope it's now a bit more clearer. But we don't know for the second and the third phases that how it's going to be applied.
Yes, and another good question, because I am also confused about the technical part, the transition periods for the technical regulations, standards, and also applied to in 6 months almost. The question, given that harmonized standards have not yet been announced, don't you find pilot phase to begin by Q3 as too early?
Too late, I would say, not too early. I would say too late, because normally, by the way, for those who are aware of it, that those standards should be released by the end of the December, so that we are already 4 months lagging behind for the technical standardization. But as I said, that what I have in my mind, I mean, what I'm expecting, that they will be operating with the basics, because this has already been happening with the, I mean, please write a comment in the chats, but for the CBAM, for the ongoing, let's say, corporate sustainability directives, you are already doing this. It's just moving that operation into more systematic way. Similar components, similar requirements, similar specifications are being asked. The problem here is not on your side, but the problem is on the, it's going to be gossip, but the IT, let's say, infrastructure of the commission side, that how this is going to be handled, who is going to be responsible within the commission side, that it's going to be a GRC, it's going to be another DG blah blah, or DG tax. For the moment, I'm expecting that DG tax is going to be the main let's say, responsible parties who is going to implement this operation.
Yeah. Another one, we have a little time, but more questions. You can ask questions to our email address as well, but I will try to reply all questions in the chat box. DPP will help to track carbon dioxide emissions for all aspects in product.
Yes, of course, embedded carbon footprint. I mean, as we are discussing with the CBAMs, that there is also needs to be a universally, let's say, methodology how to calculate it, but also there's a way to what you claimed as the carbon footprint needs to be validated, needs to be verified by the let's say, different bodies. It's different for the battery, it's different for the textile. For the batteries also, as we are discussing here, is that there is also, let's say, granular level data, semantic interoperability going on. But for the moment, we are just concentrating on the upstream data and upstream level data and upstream level, let's say, operations.
For the food products, including the water consumption and recycling details as well for the carbon dioxide emissions.
Yeah. The question I saw in the chat, the last one I saw, is that this is going to be yet another regulation burdens. I don't agree with that, because it's not a new thing, but TPP makes the current regulation landscape in a more systematic and more operational way. And also it gives the responsibilities for different entities. I mean, as the OEM, you will be responsible at the first stage, but then later on, who is claiming what kind of, let's say, component, what kind of, let's say, credential is going to be responsible. So this is also making supply chain actors, I'm not saying only the manufacturer, but the whole supply actor more responsible. I guess the idea is not consulting lobby things, but also a bit more, okay, we regulated too much and this is creating a huge implementation burden. How we are going to implement more or less the same things, you know, sorry for my pure, let's say, poor legal background, but you want to calculate a carbon footprint, and you need to know who is working for your product. Is there any child labor is going or happening? So this needs to be a bit more a lean and a more systematical way to to implement. So I won't be agree. I mean, I understand it's going to create a huge, let's say, a mess in terms of. But if you prepare yourself for this transition, both the public, both the OEM, both the supply chain actors, with please not DPP washing way, then you won't be ending up, let's say, a bad place.
Thank you for the last question's reply. Another question. Thank you for this webinar. From my side, I have the two questions. Who is or can be responsible for the data governance system? And then how the data quality security will be ensured?
Data governance is okay. Two things. I mean, data governance as the OEM data governance is yet another thing. OEM data governance, how you are collecting your data, what kind of a system that you are asking from them is yet another thing. But on the system level, data governance is also regulated by the DPP Implementing Act, and then we will be seeing it, meaning that I'm giving you an example that a member state custom unit will store blah, blah. When we need to search for a certain credential, certain data, it needs to be, I don't know, stored, or it needs to be processed via this body. This is the data governance is going to be regulated by the DPP, let's say, Implementing Act, and then we will be seeing. But the overall, I'm not going to kill with the IT things, but this is going to be a bit on an infrastructure where Europe is now investing. It's called a bit beyond cloud. It's called data spaces. And the data spaces, from the definition of the spaces, it's requiring a distributed, let's say, the computing, and it's distributed, let's say, the management, data management stuff, and so on. So you, as the data owner, I mean, data ownership is another, let's say, philosophical questions and legal questions, but you are deciding that how my data is going to be. And please also consider that on the system level, you, Emre, as you will be able to see QR code, something just read only, but I will be, as the OEM is like write only, as the government maybe will be creating yet another. So the access based data, let's say, data access is going to be defined by this one. This is already regulated. I hope I could explain the data governance. Security side is also related to data governance. It's up to you on how you're collecting from your suppliers and what kind of a standard you are, let's say, applying them. If you are asking certain type of ISO 27001, let's say, security, let's say, standards or thing, but this is up to you. But on the EU level side, on the DPP, let's say, system side, this is also part of several trust frameworks and several on the data level. We are solving this problem.
Yes. I'm skipping the last two questions. Could you show a real life example of a final and correct DPP for a textile product clothing? What should the UX be like? Is there a sort of template that will be shared by EU?
Yes, I mean, not a dashboard, not a visual, but there's going to be a template. That's also one of the technical standardization that we are waiting for. For example, where the URL needs to be embedded, who is going to provide, and what kind of things that you are going to be showing. But it's in the end, don't forget that you are serving let's say, a legal trade claims into a system. So don't bother yourself overall how the dashboard or interface, but there are going to be several interfaces. As the ministry, you will be having a different portal access, right, and portal access interface. As an OEM, you will have a different one. As the custom inspection officer, you will be seeing, I don't know, very limited one or maybe more detailed one. We will be seeing in this first for the technical standardization, second in the EU, let's say, DPP Implementing Act 1.
Yes. For textile, it looks like DPP information about accessories, labels, patches, zippers, buttons, etc.
This is already Yeah, this
Yes.
is, I mean, Emre, this has already been mentioned in the SPR and the textile product regulation. So you already know the batch number and stuff, the mandates, mandatory, the data that we already know for it. But what we are discussing is, I hope it's a bit understanded that what you need to provide is clear. I mean, on the OEM side, what you need to provide is clear. How you are going to collect or how you're going to systematically build, considering that you will need to provide in 3-4 years, it's up to your decision. So it's not, someone is not pushing you to invest a huge supply chain digitalization network or something. So this is really up to you, and this is really the OEM's decision.
Yes, the similar questions we have, and also last question for the certification bodies. I will try to reply this question, but I will read to all audiences. Can all the bodies not get together and sorry, so many questions and
Yeah.
sorry. Oh. They're asking about the certification bodies. You know that so many audits and also certification for the claim-based and also social compliance, including GRS and also SMETA, BSCI, SEDEX, etc. They're asking to how to implement all the data for the certification bodies and also audits related data in implementing in the DPP. They're asking.
Again, I would respond from a system level side. I am not interested in your all data as a DPP system operator. I am just asking what is needed. Of course, there's going to be like voluntary claims and voluntary data, and that's also to be defined by the OEM or to be defined by the brand. Okay, but what I'm asking is the mandatory data. So the certification companies or the, let's say, audit, let's say, organizations needs to provide me what needs to be done, what needs to be, what is the must thing. The other thing is a bit more what we are discussing since the beginning, based on a new services. You can create as a certification body a novel product portfolio. Okay, I am not only giving you a certification or a claim-based evidence proved and stuff, but I'm also helping you to how to be ready for DPP ready, for example, next 3 years, next 5 years. So this is not related with DPP. Please make a differentiation that if I want to travel, I need a passport and visa, but the passport, let's say, police will not ask me that, non-mandatory things that, sometimes they're asking, but I don't want to make any political comments here, that the other ones are your own, let's say, okay, I came here with a not let's say airline, but I came here, I don't know, electric train and stuff, that doesn't need to be known by the police for the moment. But this is your claim, your history, your sort of things that a certification, an audit company, who is the one who is, for example, issuing your ticket, can give as a proof. So please consider the DPP with this mindset and apply for the product journey and product manufacturing journey.
Yes. Beyond the textile, we have a question about the batteries. The batteries regulation will now require CE marking and so notified body assessment, but currently there are only 2 notified bodies. How will the pilot system work in this sense? Will DPP pilot start with battery types that will not require notified body certification or verification?
This is linked with, please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but this is also related with the national regulation side. But if you are doing a secondary battery, which is the case for the battery regulation side, we need notified bodies that they don't call notified, but although they notified bodies in the DPP system, they are the one who is also accredited by the national bodies, ministries, or the market authorities, who has the, let's say, who has the legal claim to give you your battery test results, or they give you the cell related, I don't know, recycling results stuff. And so you can operate. So it's really up to national systems, because it's going to be a bit, I don't want to say, but top-down implementation side. So the countries who still wants to export to Europe needs to adapt their own, even the certification and notified body systems in line with that.
Thank you, Suna. We don't have any more questions, but I understand from the questions and also queries and also comments from the ground. There is a big confusion about the DPP and also
Yes.
European Union regulations, including the DPP. We need to explain more. DPP is a common word. You explained about the Chinese DPP as well. They are already ready for the implement their system to European Union. We are suggesting to all countries they are prepared that themselves about the DPP structure. We call it in our side the highway and the governance data governance system. But I understand we need to organize more webinars in the local language, including Turkish.
I'm happy I can do it in French and English and the Turkish one, but I'm limited with this three. But I am happy to explain, because what we are doing with Emre, with USP and the Beyond Barcode, this is our motto. Also, we are here to create a justice between the SMEs, because this is going to create a huge washing period, DPP washing period. That's why we are trying to also protect from you for potentially risk that you can end up with something that is not needed from your side. As a supplier, for example, it's the OEM for the moment that we are giving all over the objective things. Please reach out to us if we don't do webinar stuff, but we are also sharing with our online channels that what currently DPP system is, what's currently DPP is doing, and what we are, let's say, aiming for it, and via this way what we are providing, of course, something that it's a bit more the way how we see the things. Please reach out to us. I'm happy, Emre, to do it in Turkish as I said in English, and French is going to be hard for you, but we can do in different languages as well. And also country specific, by the way, for example, an Asian specific or Indian specific and so on.
Sure. Thank you, Suna, and also thank you all the
Thank
attendees.
You very much, everyone.
We will share the presentation and also recording as a video on YouTube and also other platforms on the social media. Have a good day. And
have a good day. Thank you very much for your participation. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.